Hey, Wes, are we on number 2 of the day or what?
We are. We are on number two of a rack and stack. We just had, awesome guests from the industry and from, just overall, well, I guess not from the industry, but from, the author and coach industry that is the win side of building wins.
Exactly. And it's all a win. And hey, we talked to coaches that work with a lot of people in the industry. So it was in the industry. We're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna declare it in the industry.
And not only that, but now we get to have a return guest.
We have a return guest, and we joke about this. You get returned one of two ways, right? Either
That's
you did
right.
so bad we're gonna bring you back to redeem yourself, or you did so good that you earned your way back, and that's the case with this one. Mark
Yeah,
Byler
Mark didn't screw up.
He didn't screw up. No, he did a great job, and he's with Built Right Buildings out of the Winston, Missouri area, and we're going to bring him on now and chat about some new things that's going on in his world. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
All right. Hey, welcome back, brother.
Hey, Randy, thanks for having me.
Well, of course, it's a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to people in the industry, and especially guys like you that are running and gunning and making things happen. So, thanks for taking some time to jump on.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And it's always a pleasure to talk to people in the industry, especially someone with your expertise and your years of doing business and networking in the post-frame building space. And I'm excited to be with you today and just listen to you and get feedback from you and talk about what all we've got going as a company and the growth we're seeing and the changes we're seeing and all that stuff.
Oh, good. Well, and thank you for the kind words. That was a nice way of saying I'm old, but that's okay.
I was trying to frame it in a way that everybody would benefit, you know.
Yeah, well, thank you. That'll work. Hey, I figured out that older is better than deader, so I'm pretty happy with
There's
that.
there's
So
alternatives to being old. You're
there
correct.
is, there is, but do we live in a great industry or what? Live and work in a great industry? It's just amazing to
Well,
be in this
it
industry.
is. It is. It's amazing. And I've been in this industry since I was 14 years old. Well, actually before that, but I got out of school. I went through the eighth grade and I've been in this industry. By the time I got out of school, I was 14 and my dad had a dairy farm and I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah.
So I went out on the crew and I've been in it ever since. And now I'm a lot older than 14, but uh, I just love it. And it's still, as much as it's grown in the last whatever many years, it's still a relatively small industry and it almost seems like everybody knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Have the show coming up and it's a great place to reconnect and just see everybody and another thing about the industry is that everybody's willingness to share information and just kind of be there for each other and get better as we grow and so on. So yeah, you're correct. It is a phenomenal industry.
It is, and you hit on a great point there, Mark. Is it's one of those industries, and I think all industries are that way. What I'm going to say, but I think ours is uniquely responsive to everybody else in growing the industry because our industry only is as good as its weakest link. And that's that old saying with a chain, right? But it doesn't matter. Every pole building that gets built, whether it's by you or a competitor, every fastener, every piece of barn track, every whatever that gets used in my world, right, that I sell, I don't, whether it's mine or competitors, it needs to perform and it needs to be up to standard and it needs to be good because we all live or die by what everybody else does, right? The industry needs to continue growing, and the only way it's going to do that is that everybody out there lives up to some standards and does things the right way, right?
That's right. That's right. And I love being a part of the NFBA too and what they've done for the industry. Uh, any questions you have about the way a post frame building is built, go back. They've got a manual for it. They've got information on it, and it's been neat to see how it's gone from pole barn posts in the ground and the evolution of the industry, where it's footings, foundations, concrete piers, sleeve
Mm-hmm.
protectors, and all kinds of different ways. And continuously, it almost seems like every year there's a new product out there to help improve this style of building, and I love to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, you just brought up something. I'm going to use this some self promotion for the NFBA because we're coming up a couple weeks. But hold that up. I look better that way, right? Um, the that's one of the things we talked about is the online education, right? We've put a lot of effort at the NFBA to help elevate the game, right, and to help builders to have training available from everything from terminology to the proper way of doing things to let's all call the same thing to have some standardization so that every building that gets built is up to a standard that we can all be proud of as an industry, and that's something that I think is incredibly beneficial. So I'm glad you brought that up and pointed that out because it is a great segue into to the world of post frame. But tell us a little bit about the history of Built-Right. I mean, you guys have been around for a while, but lead us through the start and how you got started, and I'd love to hear that story again.
Yeah, I'll gladly do that. And it's really goes back to 1982, which is a long time ago. Um, my family moved to Missouri from Pennsylvania in 1981, and I was a year old at the time. In 1982, my dad started Built Right Buildings, and in the mid 80s, he was a pastor and a missionary as well. So in the mid 80s, our family went to Honduras for a 2-year stint serving in a mission down there. And over that time, my great uncle Enos Miller, took it over, and he ran it while we were gone. And we came back in '88, and then in the next 2 years, we were back and forth in Honduras some more. And then in 1990, my dad decided he's going to start a dairy farm, and he had several boys at the time, and he thought we needed more chores and more to do. So he sold the company to my great uncle and went into the dairying business. Well, poor business decision, but he did it for the right reasons. I didn't enjoy the farming side of it. So 1994, when I got out of grade school, I went back to work for Built Right Buildings. At that point, my great uncle, had taken it, and it was a thriving post frame company in Southwest Missouri. And we had one crew, but they focused on building a quality building and building it fast. So it was a good company. And then in 1997, our church had an outreach that moved up to where we are currently, which is about an hour north of Kansas City. And Enos and my dad both were part of the group that moved up here. So Enos moved up here and he started Built Right Buildings up here, and I went to work for him here. And I did a few of my own things as I got into my 20s, but my late 20s, I went back to work for Enos. And then in 2011, he had some lung issues. In 2011, he passed away. And the day he passed away, his two oldest sons called me into the office and they said, here's some folders with some jobs we've got on the books. Here's how he quotes buildings. Here you go. Good luck. And so
Wow.
really how I got involved in the ownership side of things. Before he passed, we had discussions on me taking it over, so we kind of agreed on that. Had never got a chance to really put into place a structure, a payment structure, or anything, and he never really told me how he does anything. So, uh, yeah, they handed me the folders full of stuff, and I went to work. And there was four of us at the time, and that was in 2011. And today we've got 12 crews across 5 locations. We've got a concrete crew, we've got house framing, barn dominium framing crews, metal crews, and I've got eight to 10 salespeople, and we're just having a blast. And
That's
it's
a
tremendous
that's
business
impressive.
business for us. Yeah, so
Good.
it's been a lot of fun.
And that's impressive, Mark, because that's a lot of growth in since 11. I mean, that's no joke right there. That's getting into the big time, buddy.
Yeah, well, it's COVID, was bad for a lot of people. That COVID was good for the construction industry, especially here in the Midwest, or
Right.
maybe not for everybody, but for our business, we blew up at that point. Like it
Hmm.
just took off. People were moving out of the city, wanting to buy little plots of land
Hmm.
or build a little cabin on it, a barn dominium, whatever. And that's where our business really started that trajectory. And we've been fortunate to add good people and continue that growth to now we have a location in Blue Springs, Missouri. Brookfield, Missouri, and then in 2018, I bought the original location in Neosho. So
Hmm.
that office is back up and going in Southwest Missouri, and we've got 3 crews down there, 2 salespeople, and we've opened a location in Canyon City, Colorado, in the last 6 months.
Oh, okay.
So it's been opportunities have come, and some great people have been involved, and we're just riding this wave and loving every minute of it.
Love it. So that's exciting. You kind of got into it, but I wanted to chat about the evolution of the company. But you've kind of got started into it. But um, I'm sure, like we kind of touched on it, but like most pole building folks, and I grew up in this industry myself when my dad was a builder, and I was chasing around hauling 2x4s and digging neoprene nails back in the day before we used screws, right?
Oh
And out
yeah,
of out of
oh
the
yeah,
sand and the dirt and cleaning them off, and so we could reuse them and as a kid. But the post frame building that I grew up with building was usually galvanized roof, no eave or gable overhang, one or two slide doors, a walk door or two, and maybe a window or two,
yeah,
and that was it. Right? I mean, that was post frame building, right? And
was.
it not that there's still not some of those, and not that there's not a place for those, but you look at with the NFBA show coming up, we have the Building of the Year awards, and most of our local chapters have those, and the use of post frame has just went crazy over the last several years. It's to coin a phrase. I wrote an article once about this, but it's not your father's Oldsmobile. Remember that old ad? You'd be too young a little bit, but it's not your father's pole barn anymore, right? It's not that really, really plain utility building. Oh, it can be,
Can
but
be, yeah.
it's so much more than that. And so talk about the evolution of what you guys are seeing and what you guys are doing in the post frame industry, because I'm sure you build a good old beautiful 2 slide door, 10 or 12 window ag building out back someplace, I'm sure, for machinery shed. But I think you do a lot more than that too, right?
Yeah, we do, and glad you brought that up because I have memories of being back in southern Missouri in the early '80s, the creosote posts, and I can
Mm-hmm.
still smell that creosote, nasty smelling stuff.
Awful.
And the evolution from that to the treated posts to when laminated posts became a thing to now what we're doing is we're almost not putting posts in the ground anymore.
Right.
It's become concrete piers and brackets, and it's gone from some people jokingly say a temporary structure, but I never use that term, but I get it. Now it's you keep that wood up out of the ground. Now this is a structure that's going to be there for life because you've
Mm-hmm.
got exterior materials that are warranted for 50 years. You've got a structure that is engineered and is as strong as any structure out there. So it's been kind of like you said, and along with that, the simple, a lot of one side open hay barns that we built in Southwest Missouri, Northeast Oklahoma, um, and no overhangs, no wainscot, nothing, just slap a sliding door in and a walk door, and away we go. To now, we're building these elaborate, not only barn dominiums, but even just like garage and workspaces where you've got a porch on one side or 2 sides, and you've got multiple cupolas, and you've got insulation and metal lined, and it turns into a luxury building, and it looks
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal. You go from a 312 to a 612 pitch, and you add a little detail in the front, and that's actually most of what we do anymore. It's yeah, we still do an ag building here and there, but it's become much more than that, and it's been very neat to see some of those changes, and then the range of products that we have available to us as well, and the quality of the products. Like you said, neoprene. I smashed my thumb many a time putting neoprene nails in on a roof,
Yeah.
and so now to where we're at, and just everything has changed, and it's changed for the better, and it's really fun to see. You know, yes, maybe back in the day those were temporary structures on some level. Today, I think we're building a top quality building that will rival any type of building in the market today.
Hmm. I would agree 100%. And as we see again back to the associations, when we see the building of the year products that are win, let alone just the ones that are submitted. I mean, they're beautiful buildings, and if we weren't involved in the post frame building world, you wouldn't know it's a post frame building, right? You'd think it's a steel
Right.
building or a block building or a steel building. It wouldn't matter. I mean, it's like you said, it rivals anything that can be built out there. But you still got some of the economies and the speed and some of the other things that you get that are inherently a positive to the post frame type construction, right? But you can build you could, I mean, even like and like the gentleman farmer or the people that buy 4 or 5 acres and they build a beautiful home and they want their backyard barn to look like their house as opposed to
Yeah.
just some steel pole barn, right? I mean, you can give them a pole barn out there that looks just like their house if they want it, right?
Exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
100%. You can build a pole barn, do whatever you want on the outside.
Yep.
You can do whatever, and then you can do whatever you want on the inside.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's like it's a win-win.
It is. And speaking of doing whatever you want on the inside, um, man, one of the hottest things out there right now is barndominiums or barndos, right? Huge opportunities in the industry. Um, let's talk on that for a little while.
Well, I thought you'd never ask, Randy.
And I know it's an area that's an area dear to your heart. So
It is, and that's something that we've leaned into in the last 5 years. Well, I would go back to COVID again. It's
hmm
something that, COVID has kind of really, yes, barn dominiums were around and they were popular, but with all the people that live in the city, I say all, a lot of people living in the city wanting to get out. Now, their dreams of owning this 10, 20 acre piece of property, building a house on it, having that little barn dominium. Seems like it's like every suburban mom's dream.
hmm
Um, and we have leaned into that, and it's just been amazing to see the amount of leads we get, Randy. I think it's safe to say we probably get about 30 to 40 new barn dominium leads every week that are top
Wow,
quality qualified leads, and that's in our Winston location alone, which is crazy.
wow, that's
And
impressive.
so we've taken, like you said, we've gone from that barn to that ag building in somebody's farm in Southwest Missouri to today. Now we're building these elaborate barn dominiums, and you're seeing million plus barn dominiums being built all over.
hmm
And it's not. It's used to be the thing where, hey, I can build this thing for a lot less money than a house, and that's why I want it. To today, now it's I don't care what it costs. That's what I want.
Right.
It's
And it's
become this
and I know the answer, but why is that? Why would somebody want to build a barndominium versus a stick built home?
Well, I touched on that a little bit with the backyard shed. You have this big open structure
Right.
with clear span trusses. Let's say you build a 40 by 60, for instance, and now that inside space becomes a blank canvas for anything you want to do.
Yep.
So that's part of the appeal. The other appeal is I think people love how they look, and
hmm
now you've got all these newer materials in the metal space where you've got board and batten siding, you've got standing seam roof, you've got stone options, and you can make these things look like incredible living spaces and still stay in that barn dominium space. So it's gone from that little barn with living quarters to now people are building. I want this house that looks like a barn and has the metal siding and metal roof and some stone and fireplace and all that. And I think it's just a trend, and it has no signs of ending, but a trend brought on by the desire of people to have their own space and out in the country. And so this barn dominium has kind of filled the living void side of that, and it's gone mainstream. And I can't tell you how often I speak to people from all over, not only the Midwest, but East and West Coast. And they ask me what I do. And I said, well, I'm in the post frame building business and we do barn dominiums. And it never fails. And they're like, you know what? That's my dream.
Mm.
40 acres and a
Yep.
barn dominium. I'm like, okay. So
Yep.
anyway, I'd be curious to see what you think, Randy, why it's such a hot thing. That's my viewpoint, but I'd be curious
No,
to
no,
see
I
what your
think
thoughts are on it.
you're 100% spot on. I think people people like to get back to their roots, if that makes sense. They like the idea of some country living. They like the little space, um, so they like the look. And the beautiful thing with a barn door is you can build it to look very. what's the word I want to use? Varnish, if that's the right
Yeah,
word.
yeah,
Or you can make it look pretty ultra modern.
right,
Um, we all know some friends in the industry that specialize in some very, in the steel side of it, right? And we'll talk about steel versus pole barns in a minute, but they build them very modern looking, right? And it's so that you can find the niche, if you will, as a homeowner for the look you want, right? You want the high open ceilings. You can put in second floors anywhere you want them. You can change during the construction process, right? With if you decide you walk in there one day and say, I know it's going to cost a little more to move these walls, but dude, Mark, I just think I'd like this different. Well, in typical construction, stud wall, you probably can't do that because the truss
right,
system was designed for walls, load bearing walls in a certain spot, right? You've got a lot more, as you said, an open blank canvas to kind of design that interior the way you want. And like I said, some people just want a very, very farm oriented look. Almost looks like a barn, but that's just the look they want.
right,
Or you can go the full other spectrum to where you probably almost wouldn't know it was a barn, if you will.
right,
Um,
right,
so I think it's the beautiful thing with it for the whole industry is now it's becoming mainstream enough that it's bringing an understanding that post frame, well, if you can build a house out of post frame, there's no reason I can't build my industrial building or my commercial building or my strip mall at, on the outside of the local, the local town, right? I
yep,
think all
yep,
those open up each other, and I think some of that helped with the condo part or the barndo part. When you see guys would around small towns would build that 8, 9, 10 store little strip mall with post frame, might have a metal roof and metal sides, but the front would be brick or stone and a porch and a couple of cupolas, and all of a sudden it looks really nice, and people are going, boy, that's not what I grew up thinking a pole barn was, right? So
right,
we,
right.
as an industry, and as everybody in industry has done a great job of elevating our game and elevating the industry. So hats off to everybody on that.
Absolutely. It's been a like you said, industry-wide team effort. And there's been a lot of innovators in this industry along the way, and I think we've always, as a company, prided ourselves in building a better building, built right, right?
Hmm.
It's um, but we've benefited from innovators in the industry, like people that started and innovated the columns, the concrete columns,
Hmm.
and that sort of thing, and it's all I think we learn from each other. And if I see something better that makes our building better, I'm all for it. And I think it's just going to continue to improve. And like you said, we've talked about marketing, something in the office dominium space. I don't really like how that sounds, but some form of that where you can, and I know I know people do it,
Hmm.
post frame office buildings. Why not?
Right. Yep.
And I know some people personally who've done that. So I think the sky's the limit for the industry. And as we keep adapting and changing and improving, I think more and more it becomes more and more mainstream. More people will get on board with some of these ideas and find out how great they are as a building and as a product. Also, there's no loss in resale value in going to something like this. So it's structurally they engineer and it's a sound product. And like I said earlier, your exteriors, your warranties, your maintenance free for starters. You got no paint to worry about.
Right.
You've got and it's very secure and safe and strong. And so there's really, unless you don't like the look of metal on any level, there's
Right.
not very many cons to go with the pros on this side of it.
Exactly. And I think talk about for a minute, because early on in the Barndo, when they first became a thing, uh, financing was a bit of a challenge, I think, at the start. But I think, and I've got to know quite a few people in that world. Dave Navarat's one of them. Mo Dave. Uh,
Yeah,
he's been on the podcast before. Good people. Uh, the financing on them is it's becoming acceptable now. It's become an acceptable home for people, and I think it's a lot easier to get these financed now than it used to be. Because I think if I remember when these first became a thing, if that's the right word, that was one of the toughest parts was bankers didn't understand it. It's like it's not a house. I mean, there's no basement. There's
Right,
no
right.
uh, true natural footing. There's no stud walls. I don't want to do this. I don't understand. You're trying to make a barn something it's not.
Yep.
And I think nowadays we're pretty well past that, right?
Yeah, we sure are, and we've actually partnered with some banks that have really leaned into this, and I
Hmm.
think some of them are. I know at least one of them is usually at the Frame Builders Show.
Hmm.
So if anybody out there is looking for someone, they'll be there. But we've partnered, have very good success partnering with them, and it's really streamlined the process because they've figured out that hey, this is not just some building on skids like some banks like to make it sound. This is a
Hmm.
structure that's there to last for a long, long time. And second of all, it's no different than a house. In fact, I mean, if you want to talk about exterior materials, it's probably superior to a house in a lot of ways, a traditional house. So I think their biggest issue has been having comps, right? They love to go off of comps. They hate to
Hmm.
stick their necks out there and take any chances. They love to have their comps. So now there's been a big enough body of work, and some of these banks that have been doing it for a long time, they've got comps. They can, they're familiar with all the aspects of it. They're familiar with how they don't depreciate. Like the fear was rapid depreciation because of the way it was built. And some of that stuff now there's been enough time where banks are really catching on that it's actually a very acceptable way to build. And especially some of these banks that have kind of leaned into that space and have made it part of their business. So the financing side is easy anymore. It's if you have questions throughout our process, we will hook up our customers to this bank, and then they keep us in the loop as they go through the financing process. We don't get a cut off of it,
Hmm.
but it streamlines the process for the bank and for the customer because the
Sure.
bank now has direct contact with the builder. They know how we operate. We have direct contact with the customer throughout the whole process. So it really is a tremendous benefit to us and the customer to have that access, and it works out really well. So yeah, financing, they figured it out. Banks are what they are. Kind of slow to come around sometimes, but most
Right.
of them have got there.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's good. I mean, that's just an extra plus to expanding the industry, right? Just to
Well,
have
it's
that.
exactly, it's something you got to think about. 'Cause, most people, over 50% for sure anyway, have to get financing for these barndominiums. So it's a very
Right.
valid concern. A lot of people have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, speak on the ease, the uh, the speed of erection, the speed of completion. Um, it's it's probably it's more the look you want and the freedom you want because I'm sure there's the initial framing, if you will, versus a house framing is probably faster. But at the end of the day, you're still building a house on the inside once you're done, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
you got
Exactly.
the plumbing, the heating, all the utilities, all the drywalling and floor coverings and kitchens and baths, all that. It doesn't matter what type of structure it is. That time frame is about the same. Is there any speed to completion with a barn dominium as opposed to maybe a stick built home, if you will?
Yeah, there is. I mean, especially getting the outside done. I mean,
Right.
it's one of the benefits of building a pole barn is you get the outside, you can build those things fast because it's
Right.
a simple process, and especially if you have a crew that's worked together for years. I mean, these things go up. You can get a 40 by 60 dried in a matter of a week pretty easily. And then you go inside and you can do all that inside stuff. You're dried in. The weather no longer plays a part in the construction process, and it's a very quick and easy
Hmm.
process. And sometimes I think, well, maybe it's too easy, but hey, easy is good as long as you end up with the right product at the end of the day. So,
Exactly.
and we
Exactly.
actually we actually do a lot of these barndominiums. Full disclosure, we do stick frame a lot of them,
Okay.
and
Okay.
usually when the bigger ones, the big tall ones, we definitely don't. Those are post frame with living inside, frame out the inside. But a lot of the ones we do end up being stick frame with metal sides and roof, and
Okay.
so
So
it's you're building a house
you're
essentially.
still right, but it's still got that
But it's still
roll.
simpler, and so it's still simpler. So it's still got that open canvas on the inside,
Right.
free span, so it's easier to adjust, move walls, and set that inside up to each person's individual tastes.
Sure. Sure. So it's what would you, just curious more than anything, what would you say, and you may have touched on this briefly, but what would you say is as a percentage of your overall business is in the barnuminium genre now?
Uh, I just saw those numbers this morning, and I would say we are at, I would say, probably revenue wise,
Yeah, percentage of
70%,
70%. Okay.
70%
Wow.
barnuminium, 60 to 70.
So it's
Um,
very fair to say you're experts.
well, we can, I mean,
You can
I,
say
I
it.
can't
You
think
can
of
say
I
it.
can't think of a better word, but hey,
Yeah. Well, I think geniuses, gurus.
yeah,
Uh,
you name it, yeah.
yeah. Any of
So
those.
we do, and we have people that work sales people that come directly from the housing industry that work for us that sell these things. So
Mm-hmm.
these guys are, a lot of times people express frustration because they go to a pole barn company to build a house
Mm-hmm.
and they want a house experience. They want a barn dominium, but they want that house experience. So we've got salespeople now that come from the house building um, industry. So these guys have the experience where, yes, they're selling barn dominiums, but they build them with the end in mind. So
Right.
they know all the little things that go into making a house perfect. And
Yep.
so, they'll take the time to sit down with customers for, you know, 3 hours if it needs to be, multiple times, and just walk through each step of the process and lay out floor plans and plumbing and all that good stuff. And so that's really been a game changer for us too, bringing those guys in from the house building space and turning them loose in the barn doors because the experience often is where it's at for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, money plays a part, but if you can offer them an experience and they get comfortable with you and you can answer their questions and all the way this all goes together, it's huge. And so we've kind of worked and leaned into that part, brought the people on board to make that a key part of what we're doing in the barn space, and that's made a huge difference as well.
Sure. So you're taking them obviously from start to finish, if that's what they want, which probably most do. Is
Well, we most do, but we actually ourselves team up with another a group of guys
mm-hmm.
who we contract till the end of the from the start of the foundation, excavation, all the way to the exterior being finished, and then the interior walls framed. We contract that portion, and then we turn it over to that next group of guys to
Okay.
finish it. So we don't contract the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
but we do offer the option of contracting with our team of people to get it done.
Gotcha.
So
So, okay. So at the end of the
that's
day,
been
they
huge as
could.
well, because a
Yep.
lot of people, don't want to be a general contractor on their house,
Right.
which
Right.
that again, you're talking about an issue with a bank. A bank is much more comfortable if you have a general contractor that oversees the whole project.
Right.
And if you can offer that, another way to just be a step ahead.
Oh, yeah. To me, that's huge because you kind of struck on it earlier. And if a pole barn builder, and we love them, but just puts the shell up and walks away, and now you're stuck trying to turn this into a home, that's a pretty daunting place for most people to be,
Very much
right?
so. Yeah.
And whether you're using sub crews or you're turning it over to another company completely, the fact that, to me, that's a comfort level not only for the bank but a comfort level for the homeowner to know I got Mark's guy Bill that's going to
Yes.
take me until they hand the key over one day, right? And
Yes. Exactly.
and that's huge in a home. A pole barn's one thing where you might general some of your own stuff, but
Yep.
I think this is a lifetime commitment, right? This is a big thing for most people, and probably the
Yeah.
last
Most
place they're
times.
going to live.
Yeah. Exactly. And most of these people are. This is our final home. Like this is
Yep,
it right here.
yep. So they want it
So
right, they want it perfect, and they
they
want
want
to
it
be
right.
comfortable.
Yep.
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 S-
And this other team of the finishers, they also meet with customers in our conference room. So
hmm
it's not us, but it is at
Right.
our location,
Yep.
and it's people we recommend and have faith in. So
Sure.
it becomes part of our whole process.
Yep. I love that. So, um, you build, and it's interesting to know you build some stick built. That's interesting too. Um, let's talk a little bit about uh, uh, post frame or stick built versus steel built, because there are buildings, especially in the deep south, more than probably in the north, that are built with steel frame buildings. Do you do any steel frame, and or what's the advantages or disadvantages, or are there none in your opinion? It's end up with the same result, just a different way.
Yeah, we do build some steel buildings. We have a crew that has built a lot of them over the years. So if right now we're building one right now,
Okay.
and it's right next door to our office. So not sure if we're doing the right thing or not, but
Yeah.
it's business, right? So
Yep.
typically, if it's a bigger building that's say 100 feet or wider,
Mhm.
they want clear span, or actually basically if it's above 80 feet, we recommend going to steel building
Yep.
because now you go to 100-foot wide clear span wood frame building, which you can do. Your costs skyrocket because the trusses you've got to have double or triple ply trusses. There's so much more that goes into it.
Right.
We just recommend going with steel.
Yeah.
And then, there's longevity questions that come into this, but the way we build most of our pole buildings with no wood in the ground, everything's above the ground. The same way with steel, you basically, yes, you could still have, potentially have some termite issues and some rotting if there's moisture, but it basically eliminates all the arguments against
Right.
wood if you have that wood up out of the ground.
Exactly.
Um, so for steel buildings, I would recommend doing those if you want a big open space and big span. Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
Otherwise, especially in the barn dominium world, there's a lot of steel building barn dominiums being built. But if you build them out of wood, it makes everything much simpler on the inside.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
framing, everything ties together much better, and it becomes a better structure, in my opinion. So
Yep.
that's the short version of that.
Yeah, no, perfect, perfect. And I want to be cognizant of your time, and I appreciate you being on. Uh, tell me about blueprints. You got a new blueprint site or something coming up, I think.
We do, and I just put the website address up there. But we have a blueprint site. But it's the barn dominiums only. So it's I think it just went live yesterday, so people can go on and buy blueprints, click to buy, add them to your cart. We can ship you
Hmm.
full sets. You can just buy the PDF and they're yours. And we're just using buildings that we've built, putting them on there, and it's we're offering them for sale.
Okay.
And the architect that I'm working with is designing some newer, different types of barn dominiums. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Scandinavian style of building where it's a lot of uh, linear lines, a lot of symmetry.
Okay.
Everything is lined up. So he's working on a few of those. The Scandinavian style. It's a perfect fit for Barndo. It really
Sure.
is. It's a Scandinavian style of barndominium. We're going to have some Western styles on there, and all of these are going to be. The idea is to have them all easy to build. So look fantastic, but simple to build and cost effective. So people can, gives them some options to just go on and look around and see what they can find. But I'm
Right.
excited about it because it's a natural fit for
Oh,
our
sure.
industry and for our company to do something like that. So
Yeah. Well, awesome. So they can jump on there. Wes has got it up there right now, scrolling through it a little
yeah,
bit. So nice looking site. Well, that's awesome. So you're moving and grooving, Mark. I love it, man. I appreciate you coming on today and sharing more about what's going on at Built Right. I mean, you guys are incredible story, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I love talking to professionals in the industry, and you certainly at the top of that game, buddy.
well, thank you, Randy. Like I said earlier, the pleasure's all mine. I love talking to you. I love talking to guys that have been in the industry for a long time. And
There he
again,
goes. There he goes to that oldie
not a,
thing
not a
again.
not a not a jab at your age. Just saying experience. It's
That's
it's a
okay.
I'm
That's
I'm
okay.
I'm pumping your experience.
Okay, that I'll
So
take that. I'll take that.
so
But you got to
uh,
understand, I don't buy seniors coffee at McDonald's because I'm just not going to say the word. I'll
I
pay the
I
I'll pay
get
the
it.
full
I
price.
get it.
Oh, well,
But
good.
no, pleasure's all mine, Randy. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, absolutely, and we'll see you in Knoxville, right? I think we're going to get
You
together.
bet. You
Good,
bet.
good, good, good,
You
good.
bet.
All right. Well, there's something, and we didn't prepare you for this because you're too sharp. We didn't need to. So be ready. There's an SAQ, should ask questions. So, what did I either miss today, or when you're just out and about, whether you're traveling, whether you're around home, and people want to know something about pole buildings or what you do or barn dominiums, what's the one question you just wish people would ask and never do?
Boy, that's yeah, you should have prepared me. I guess
I
I'm
should have,
I'm
but
not, maybe not as shocked as you thought, but I will say, uh,
well, you called me
one
old, so it's only
question.
fair.
Yeah, well, I think we covered that topic.
Yeah.
Uh, One question I think they should ask, especially in the barndominium space, is um, there's a lot of misconceptions around how metal siding looks. So
Hmm.
Pinterest, they all look perfect, right?
Right.
So there's, and then you go out and sometimes you build these and there's a little bit of rippling in the metal and some stuff like that, and people don't expect it. Some of the question or a couple questions, what's the difference in metal siding versus more traditional sidings? Um, what's the lifespan? Why should I build a barn dominium? Is it foundation? Are there foundation issues? Are there code issues? That's a big one. There's
Hmm.
certain areas, if you're too close to a city or somewhere, codes come into play. Why should I spend this kind of money for a barn dominium when for the same money I can build a house? That's a great question. I'd love
Hmm.
to answer that one all day long. Um, those are a few. It's and then more is, what's when it comes to people that are more knowledgeable, let's say in the post frame industry, what's the difference between pole barns in 1980 to pole barns in 2025? Because my dad built a pole barn, in 1980 and it blew down in 1995 because the
Hmm.
posts rotted off and so on. So
Right.
why should I build a pole barn? What's the difference? Some stuff like that. So
Yeah. Well,
it's
those
just
are good
one
questions.
question. I hit you with a bunch of them, but
Yeah. No, those are good questions, and that's good because people need to know. A lot of times, uh, people are looking at a barn dominium, for example, and never built a pole barn, or they built one pole barn or had one built in their life. They really don't know they don't know what they don't know, right? So it's
right,
always good to hear
right,
from an expert. Here's some of the things you ought to ask your builder, or if you're interviewing a couple of builders, here's some of the questions you should ask, and make sure that you're comfortable with their expertise, right? Their
right.
experience.
And then one more thing I'd like to add to that is there's
Yeah.
still a misconception out there, or maybe it's not a misconception. There's still an idea that a pole barn or barn dominium is way cheaper than a traditional house. And yes, you can build them cheaper. However, if you go on the inside, you can still spend. That's where the money comes in, is the
Right.
interior. So, a question everybody should ask is, are they really as cheap as people say they are? There's you can find anything on the internet anymore that tells you whatever you want to hear.
Right.
They're not necessarily cheaper for
Right.
starters.
Right.
Um, so that question I think would be a good one to ask to get out of the way first. If you're coming into this expecting to build a 6,000 square foot living space for $200,000, which we've gotten those questions, then that's something that we need to talk about. So
Yeah, yeah. No, no, and I think that's very fair because the price is not the reason to buy or build a barnuminium, right?
exactly,
That's
exactly,
just not. There's all the
it's
other
not
there's too many other advantages, and it's not price. It could end up at times it could be advantageous, or it may not. But like you said,
right.
if 85% of that cost is in the inside, that's not changing,
No, no,
regardless.
that's sometimes I think the misconception is we can get this thing up for X, but you go inside, and if you're using high end finishings on everything, you didn't
Yeah.
save a dime.
Well,
So,
exactly.
and
And it,
I love high end finishings. I'm not saying
Oh,
that, but
well, exactly.
you know,
But I mean, you can buy a $30,000 refrigerator freezer, right? So I
right,
mean,
you
it all
can, you
depends
can.
on what you want to do with it, right?
Yeah,
So, well,
exactly.
awesome. Well, Mark, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you. We'll see you in Knoxville, man.
All right. Thank you, Randy.
All right, brother. Don't. Yep, we'll be back to you in a minute. Don't go away. Go hide in the green room. Have a grape that Wes put in there for you.
All right, got it.
All right. Thanks, buddy. All right, man. Was that a good discussion on all things post frame buildings and And barnuminium is an area that I just think is super growing in our industry. And hope you enjoyed that conversation. Reach out to Mark anytime you want. I know he loves to talk the industry as I do. So hope you enjoyed that. And just another day of loving it, and owning it, and loving what I do and doing what I love, because that's what Wes and I do every single day. And so we're going to go do one more in a minute. So I'm going to go grab a new water and get to doing it. So remember, make today your best day ever. Till tomorrow. Let's go.